Now with you looking into hip hop, obviously you're starting to get views off of these situations. What is your impression of like the US at this time, because you're looking up these crazy stories and these gangster rappers? Like, what are you thinking about us over here just in general?
That's such a good question, right? So when I started doing this stuff, the funny thing is that Jay-Z shooting his brother at 12 thing, I actually didn't realize at the time that it was the violent element that had made it popular. Because after that, I did the video on Rick Ross and 50 Cent's back and forth. And that wasn't a gang story, that wasn't violent, but that ended up going super viral, more than the Jay-Z thing.
Right.
So it took me a while to realize that the violent element was this almost like a multiplier of people's interest in the story. Because then I did the Frank Ocean, Def Jam, label dispute, and that did numbers. But then I did a video on kind of UK drill gangster rappers, because like at the time when I moved out of Bognor Regis, I moved back to London to an area that was kind of like a known, affiliated with a certain gang in South London, right? And this was before I was really doing anything on YouTube, but like I would listen to the local drill rappers' music, and I would come home from like work days and like there'd be a street taped off, and then before I knew it, I'd be on Google working out, listening to the song, working out what happened in my neighborhood, way before I even considered doing a video about it, right? But it was like, I was kind of like just doing random stuff about stuff I was interested in. When I moved out of the area, I eventually did a video about the drill beef and the stuff that was going on in the UK. Right. I did a video about UK drill culture, but I was always just more into US music. Like growing up, I was listening to 50 Cent, Jay-Z. I mean, we had a lot of good rappers that I would listen to, like underground rappers growing up. There was a guy like Skinny Man and Jest, or like these guys called Mark B and Blade back in the day. All different types of rap that like UK rap was interesting and it was personal, but really the American stuff was exciting to me. Like it was like the 50 Cent and the Jay-Z, the superheroes. Like Jay-Z, like man, came from the Marcy Projects and like became a multi-millionaire. Like this is a real inspiring success story for me. Right. But at the same time, I think everyone in the UK has this idea of like, yo, America, they got guns. It's crazy over there. Because yeah, there's guns here and there in the UK and people got knives, but it's this mentality of like, English people are mad. The amount of English people that don't want to go to America because of the guns. Like middle-class English women will be like, I don't want to go to America. The guns, oh, there's guns everywhere. I'll get shot up. There's school shootings, all of this stuff. Yeah. And to be fair, there do be guns over here, but it's not.
Like even when I'm playing, like if I'm on the game online, like Call of Duty, and there's some fucking British kids, the first thing they do is like, oh yeah, y'all are school shooters. And like that's what they talk shit about.
That's what everyone thinks though. Bro, people, I mean, it's funny to me because it's like I come over here and do work and shit, and the amount of people that say to me like, be careful, like don't get shot. Don't, like, and they really, obviously, yeah, you do have to be careful out here, but it's like, they act like you damn near just there's just drive-bys at the airport on arrival and shit. Like
everywhere is like fucking Chicago.
They're just ducking bullets everywhere you go, but it's not like that. But people have this idea. And I probably felt like that as well. Like, you just feel like, bro, these American stories are different. Like, real gangster rap in the UK didn't really hit the mainstream until like, I want to say like 2019. Like, we had road rap, which was like gangster rap from like the 2000s and the 2010s, but it was never a mainstream thing that everyone was into. Like, artists like Giggs and stuff back in the day, like you knew like he had a gun case and he was serious, but that wasn't like mainstream culture. Not everyone was listening to that. Whereas like now, we've got number one songs that are like drill songs about, the first drill number one song was a song called Body, and it's kind of like about girls having a nice body but catching bodies, and like it's this whole thing. So it's like everything in America just seemed way more serious, and I would say probably I'd listen to like 80% American rap and 20% English rap at the time. So that's reflected on my channel. I'll do a little UK story here and there. I did a Swedish story. I did a video about an Indian gangster rapper, but like 80% of it is American because that's just what I'm into. It's not about like I'm chasing the clout. Like I listen to that shit all the time. I listen to Chicago music nonstop. So.
Well, no, I've dove into some UK drill. I forget exactly what his name is, but he wears like demon masks. And there was one song. He says something along the lines of. What I did that day.
This is Lucci, yeah.
I splashed him down, I felt his bones. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, because it just took me back to when I was in prison. Like, that's a real thing. Like, people would get hit with pokers and it would dull the poker when you hit their bone. And you would hit something that feels, So when he said that, I was like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Because only a motherfucker that did it really actually knows, like, yeah, you smack bones and fucks the shit up, I was like, oh, that shit gangster. Like, he
That's hard.
Now, one thing I noticed, though, is everyone's masked up. And apparently, just being in certain music videos, you can get arrested and shit like that. So for you, when you start covering people over there who's obviously, for legal purposes, their identity needs to be concealed, and I'm sure they're not really trying to get talked about too much.
True.
At what point did it become dangerous for you speaking on them?
Yeah, I had a couple situations, to be honest, man. Like, literally, that thing I just told you about where I lived in this area, like, I lived in an area, I basically lived in an area that was basically between two gangs. Like, there was, like, one gang on one side called, like, 410. Right, they lived right by where I lived. Like, the block I lived in was, like, one of their blocks, basically. But it wasn't too, it was kind of getting gentrified. And then there was another crew called Moscow 17. And then there was another crew of real dangerous guys from Peckham called Zone 2. And so, like, I lived in that area, and I would see little things going on, and I would read about it in the news. That was like 2018. And then when the channel took off and I moved out the area, maybe like 2021, I made a video on that area. And like, there was stuff I found out that I didn't put in the video. Like, that always be happening of like, I'll find some stuff and I'll be like, okay, I'm not gonna put that in.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go that far.
especially when you live there.
Yeah, exactly. But like, even after that, it's like, you know, there was a guy that was like a notorious alleged shooter for this crew, right? And like, you know, he just like posted some mad ominous picture of me on Snapchat. And like, when that video dropped, like quite a few of those guys were kind of saying little things about me. One of them was saying that I'm a Fed and posting that I'm a snitch and a Fed and stuff. And then like the UK blog pages like picked that up and were like, oh, Ross has been exposed for being a Fed by this one rapper. And so like, that was kind of like my first thing where I was like, oh, that's kind of close to home. But at the same time, I didn't really want to let people intimidate me. So I did a video about a bunch of London gang rappers in February. And like, I had a little issue with a guy that like really, he wasn't the main guy I was talking about in the story, but he had a case and was low key not around. Like, how can I put this? Like, he was out the country basically, but there was all this stuff that had gone on, but it's like all over Reddit, there's hella other videos about it. And I was like, at the time, I was being kind of loose. I would post on Instagram like, yo, I got a video about this thing coming. And so that was dumb. I don't do that anymore. But like, they found out that I was doing a video that was going to talk about their situation. And then they hit me up, kind of pressing me, being like, yo, you shouldn't do that. And it kind of became a bit of a back and forth. And it was a thing of me of like, I didn't want to back down and be like, I'm just gonna get pressed and not talk about it. Because I said to the guy, I was like, bro, you're the top 3 most famous drill rapper coming out of this area. If I don't talk about you, people are gonna think I ain't done my homework. So I can't not talk about
like
you.
On a professional level, like I have to, but in a common sense level, you know, because most of this communication happened like over the phone.
There's an Instagram and a phone call, yeah.
Do you think if you ran into them in person, it might have went different?
Well, here's the funny thing, right? So it's like, we went back and forth and I was like, look, I can't not talk about you. It's just, people are gonna think I don't know what I'm talking about if I don't mention you, because you're a big part of this. But what I did, because the video wasn't mainly about him, so I kind of toned it down and I was kind of like, well, look, I don't need to bring this up. And like, this is interesting, but it's not really relevant to the story. So like, I'm just not gonna mention some of this stuff here. It don't do nothing for me to mention it, even though it's interesting and I found it out and other people are talking about it. So I kind of toned it down and then we went back and forth and squashed it. And I ended up actually meeting up with him in somewhere and we did an interview, but it didn't come out. And it was just kind of like, we squashed it, but it's just a funny thing of, it's almost like, I think in the heat of the moment, and there's a lot, you know, I think people want to be tough and press you and shut certain things down. But then I think over time, especially when something drops and it raises someone's profile, they kind of realize like, okay, this is actually a look for me.
They see the benefit of it.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, okay, like, how can I use this?
Do you feel that, you know, because like you just said, professionally, you want to give the fans what they want, but when you build a relationship with these actual people and it's like, all right, you know what, I can leave a couple things out, we can make this work to where it's 50-50. Do you feel at that point you're somewhat gaining a respect level with these rappers that's gonna further your career but then keep the danger at bay because you're not putting too much shit out?
It's difficult because I think on the one hand, in that scenario, it was like, I feel like my dedication is to serve the audience and to serve the research. Like, my goal is to be a fact finder. I'm trying to spread the truth. I'm not trying to expose people. I'm not trying to like ruin anyone's life. I don't like, if I find some shit that's completely off the beaten track, look, I went through a period of people DMing me like, oh, you want to know this about this person? I actually don't want to know it. If it's not on Google, if I can't find it, like, I find shit that's hard to find. But if it's not out there, I don't want to bring something that was in the shadows that no one knows about to the table.
No, I'm 100%. So my whole thing was, look, I don't care if you know he killed him. If the paperwork doesn't fucking say it, I don't want to say it, because whatever the paperwork says is what I can speak on. That's my comfort zone, because whatever the paperwork says is what the police already knows. So you giving me the inside scoop of when I lived in a certain area in Boston, they wanted me to cover a rap war that was going on. I knew personally 2 people that were killed, one on each side. I don't want to speak on this shit because I know things that the feds might know, the feds might not know, and I don't want to bridge that gap. So I completely stayed away from the situation. So that's the same thing for me, is if it wasn't in the paperwork, I'm all set. I don't want to fucking know it.
For real. And I like doing research. Like, research is actually my thing. I like using different methods to find information that's on Google or using Reddit. And I'm not someone that's just I'm not just spreading Reddit rumors as if they're true, but it's like, you know, I might make a video and be like, look, there's a dozen posts about this with 100 comments on it saying that he did this, he did that, he did that. Why can't I talk about that? You've got thousands of people over here looking at this thing, and I can't provide a little bit of analysis. And my thing is, it's like, I'm trying to take all this information that's out there and give you a very intelligent and responsible walkthrough of all of the information that's out there. What I'm not trying to do is find some shit that you wouldn't, like, I'm not tapping people's phones. When people DM me, my DMs are turned off now. You can't DM me if we're not already logged in, right? But like, I'm on some shit of like, I don't want to know some secret expose information about someone. I'm trying to find what's out there publicly. I'm trying to tell a story in a way that you can understand and follow and feel for people too.
Right.
And like, that's my responsibility, is to the audience and to the truth. Like, I'm all about the truth. And that's why it's like, when I took some of that stuff out of the video for that guy, I felt like to remove his section completely and not talk about this guy, I didn't feel like that would be the truth of the situation or the history of this area. But I felt like, well, removing these couple of pointers, they don't really contribute to the overall message of this video. So I'm not letting myself down by taking those things out.